Rallying is a form of auto racing that takes place on public or private roads with modified production or specially built road-legal cars. This motorsport is distinguished by running not on a circuit, but instead in a point-to-point format in which participants and their co-drivers drive between set control points, leaving at regular intervals from one or more start points. Rallies may be won by pure speed within the stages or alternatively by driving to a predetermined ideal journey time within the stages. History = pre-war era =. The term rally, as a branch of motorsport, probably dates from the first Monte Carlo Rally of January 1911. Until the late 1920s, few if any other events used the term. Rallying itself can be traced back to the 1894 Paris-Euro-Rouen horseless carriage competition, sponsored by a Paris newspaper, Le Petit Journal, which attracted considerable public interest and entries from leading manufacturers. Prizes were awarded to the vehicles by a jury based on the reports of the observers who rode in each car. The official winner was Albert Lemmer, registered trademark to driving a 3-horsepower Peugeot, although the Comte de Dion had finished first but his steam-powered vehicle was ineligible for the official competition. This event led directly to a period of city-to-city road races in France and other European countries, which introduced many of the features found in later rallies, individual start times with cars running against the clock rather than head-to-head. Time controls at the entry and exit points of towns along the way. Road books and route notes. And driving over long distances on ordinary, mainly gravel, roads, facing hazards such as dust, traffic, pedestrians and farm animals. The first of these great races was the Paris-Euro-Bordeaux-Euro-Paris race of June 1895, won by Paul Coechlin in a Peugeot, despite arriving 11 hours after a per-mile Levasseur in a Panhard A Levasseur. Levasseur's time for the 1,178 km course, running virtually without a break, was 48 hours and 48 minutes, an average speed of 24 km per hour. Just 8 years later, in the Paris-Euro-Madrid race of May 1903, the Moors of Fernand Gabriel, running over the same roads, took just under 5¼ hours for the 550 km to Bordeaux, an average of 105 km per hour. Speeds had now far outstripped the safe limits of dusty highways thronged with spectators and open to other traffic, people and animals. There were numerous crashes, many injuries and 8 deaths. The French government stopped the race and banned this style of event. From then on, racing in Europe would be on closed circuits, initially on long loops of public highway and then, in 1907, on the first purpose-built track, England's Brooklands. Racing was going its own separate way. One of the earliest of road races, the Tour de France of 1899, was to have a long history, running 18 times as a reliability trial between 1906 and 1937, before being revived in 1951 by the Automobile Club de Nice. Italy had been running road competitions since 1895, when a reliability trial was run from Turin to Asti and back. The country's first true motor race was held in 1897 along the shore of Lake Maggiore, from Arona to Stresa and back. This led to a long tradition of road racing, including events like Sicily's Targa Florio and Giro di Sicilia, which went right round the island, both of which continued on and off until after World War II. The first Alpine event was held in 1898, the Austrian Touring Club's 3-day automobile run through South Tyrol, which included the infamous Stelvio Pass. In Britain, the legal maximum speed of 12 miles per hour precluded road racing, but in April and May 1900, the Automobile Club of Great Britain organised the 1,000-mile trial, a 15-day event linking Britain's major cities, in order to promote this novel form of transport. 70 vehicles took part, the majority of them trade entries. They had to complete 13 stages of route varying in length from 43 to 123 miles at average speeds of up to the legal limit of 12 miles per hour, and tackle 6 hill climb or speed tests. On rest days and at lunch halts, the cars were shown to the public in exhibition halls. This was followed in 1901 by a 5-day trial based in Glasgow. The Scottish Automobile Club organised an annual Glasgow Euro-London non-stop trial from 1902 to 1904, then the Scottish Reliability Trial from 1905. The Motorcycling Club allowed cars to enter its trials and runs from 1904. In 1908 the Royal Automobile Club held its 2,000 miles International Touring Car Trial, and 1914 the important Light Car Trial for manufacturers of cars up to 1400 cc's, to test comparative performances and improve the breed. In 1924, the exercise was repeated as the Small Car Trials. In Germany, the Herkomer Trophy was first held in 1905, and again in 1906. This challenging 5-day event attracted over 100 entrants to tackle its 1,000 km road section, a hill climb and a speed trial, but sadly it was marred by poor organization and confusing regulations. One participant had been Prince Henry of Austria, who was inspired to do better, so he enlisted the aid of the Imperial Automobile Club of Germany to create the first Prinz Heinrich VAT in 1908. Another trial was held in 1910. These were very successful, attracting top drivers and works cars from major teams. Several manufacturers added Prince Henry models to their ranges. The first Alpine trial was held in 1909, in Austria. By 1914, this was the toughest event of its kind, producing a star performance from Britain's James Radley in his Rolls-Royce Alpine Eagle. Then in 1911 came the first Monte Carlo Rally, organized by a group of wealthy locals who formed the Sport Automobile VAR Copyright Losseper Copyright Dick Mona Copyright Gask, and bankrolled by the Socia Copyright Tar Copyright des Bains de Mer, the operators of the famous casino who were keen to attract wealthy sporting motorists. The competitive elements were slight, but getting to Monaco in winter was a challenge in itself. A second event was held in 1912. Two ultra-long-distance challenges took place at this time. The Peking Paris of 1907 was not officially a competition, but a raid, the French term for an expedition or collective endeavor whose promoters, the newspaper Le Matin, rather optimistically expected participants to help each other. It was won by Prince Scipion Borghese, Luigi Barzini, and Ettore Guizardi in Italy. The New Yorker Euro Paris of the following year, which went via Japan and Siberia, was won by George Schuster and others in a Thomas Flyer. Each event attracted only a handful of adventurous souls, but in both cases the successful drivers exhibited characteristics modern rally drivers would recognize: meticulous preparation, mechanical skill, resourcefulness, perseverance and a certain single-minded ruthlessness. The New Yorker Euro-Seattle race of 1909, if shorter, was no easier. Rather gentler was the Glidden Tour, run by the American Automobile Association between 1902 and 1913, which had timed legs between control points and a marking system to determine the winners. Interwar years. The First World War brought a lull to rallying. The Monte Carlo Rally was not resuscitated until 1924, but since then, apart from World War II and its aftermath, it has been an annual event and remains a regular round of the World Rally Championship. In the 1930s, helped by the tough winters, it became the premier European rally, attracting 300 or more participants. In the 1920s, numerous variations on the Alpine themes sprang up in Austria, Italy, France, Switzerland and Germany. The most important of these were Austria's Alpen VAT, which continued into its 44th edition in 1973, Italy's Coppa delle Alpi, and the Coupe Internationale des Alpes, organized jointly by the automobile clubs of Italy, Germany, Austria, Switzerland and, latterly, France. This last event, run from 1928 to 1936, attracted strong international fields vying for an individual Glacier Cup or a Team Alpine Cup, including successful Talbot, Riley, MG and Triumph teams from Britain and increasingly strong and well-funded works representation from Adolf Hitler's Germany, keen to prove its engineering and sporting prowess with successful marques like Adler, Wanderer and Trumpf. The French started their own Rallye des Alpes Frenes Sectionizes in 1932, which continued after World War II as the Rallye Internationale des Alpes, the name often shortened to Coupe des Alpes. Other important rallies started between the wars included Britain's RAC Rally and Belgium's Liège Rome Liège, officially called Le Marathon de la Route, two events of radically different character. the former a gentle tour between cities from various start points, rallying at a seaside resort with a series of maneuverability and car control tests. The latter a thinly disguised road race over some of Europe's toughest mountain roads. In Ireland, the first Ulster Motor Rally was run from multiple starting points. After several years in this format, it transitioned into the 1,000-mile circuit of Ireland Rally. In Italy, Benito Mussolini's government encouraged motorsport of all kinds and facilitated road racing, so the sport quickly restarted after World War I. In 1927 the Mille Miglia was founded, run over a 1,000-mile loop of highways from Brescia to Rome and back. It continued in this form until 1938. The Lear GE of August 1939 was the last major event before World War II. Belgium's Ginet Trecenstar and France's Jean Trevoux tied for first place, denying the German works teams shortly before their countries were overrun. This was one of 5 Lear GE wins for Trecenstar. Trevoux won 4 Montes between 1934 and 1951. Post-war years. Rallying was again slow to get underway after a major war, but the 1950s were the golden age of the long-distance road rally. In Europe, the Monte Carlo Rally, the French and Austrian Alpines, and the Lear GE were joined by a host of new events that quickly established themselves as classics: the Lisbon Rally, the Tulip Rally, the Rally to the Midnight Sun, the Rally of the 1,000 Lakes, and the Acropolis Rally. The RAC Rally gained international status on its return in 1951, but for 10 years its emphasis on map-reading navigation and short maneuverability tests made it unpopular with foreign crews. The FIA created in 1953 a European Rally Championship of 11 events. It was first won by Helmut Polanski of Germany. This was the premier international championship until 1973, when the FIA created the World Rally Championship for manufacturers, won that first year by Alpine Renault. Not until 1979 was there a World Rally Championship for drivers, won that year by PJA Paragraph RN World EGNRD. Initially, most of the major post-war rallies were fairly gentlemanly, but the organizers of the French Alpine and the Lear GE straight away set difficult time schedules. The Automobile Club de Marseille-Provence laid on a long tough route over a succession of rugged passes, stated that cars would have to be driven flat out from start to finish, and gave a coveted Coupé des Alpes to anyone achieving an unpenalized run. While Belgium's Royal Motor Union made clear no car was expected to finish the Lear GE unpenalized, when one did they tighten the timing to make sure it never happened again. These 2 events became the ones for the men to do. The Monte, because of its glamour, got the media coverage and the biggest entries. While the Acropolis took advantage of Greece's appalling roads to become a truly tough event. In 1956 came Corsica's Tour de Corse, 24 hours of virtually non-stop flat-out driving on some of the narrowest and twistiest mountain roads on the planet. The first major rally to be won by a woman, Belgium's Gilbert Thirion, in a Renault Dauphine. The Lear GE continued as uncompromisingly an open-road event run to an impossible time schedule, and remained Europe's toughest rally until 1964, by which time it had turned to the wilds of Yugoslavia and Bulgaria to find traffic-free roads. But in the end the pressures were irresistible. The Coupé des Alpes struggled on until 1973 until it too succumbed, its demise no doubt hastened by the decision of the French motorsporting authorities to select the Tour de Corse as its representative event in international rally championships. These events were road races in all but name, but in Italy such races were still allowed, and the Mille Miglia continued until a serious accident in 1957 caused it to be banned. Meanwhile, in 1981, the Tour de France was revived by the Automobile Club de Nice as a different kind of rally, based primarily on a series of races at circuits and hill climbs around the country. It was successful for a while and continued until 1986. It spawned similar events in a few other countries, but none survive. Rallying became very popular in Sweden and Finland in the 1950s, thanks in part to the invention there of the Specialstrackaren CCKA or Aeroquasco, or special stage, shorter sections of route, usually on minor or private roads predominantly gravel in these countries away from habitation and traffic, which were separately timed. These at long last provided the solution to the conflict inherent in the notion of driving as fast as possible on ordinary roads. The idea spread to other countries, albeit more slowly to the most demanding events. The RAC Rally had formally become an international event in 1951, but Britain's laws precluded the closure of public highways for special stages. This meant it had to rely on short maneuverability tests, regularity sections and night map reading navigation to find a winner, which made it unattractive to foreign crews. In 1961, Jack Hemsley was able to persuade the Forestry Commission to open their many hundreds of miles of well-surfaced and sinuous gravel roads, and the event was transformed into one of the most demanding and popular in the calendar, by 1983 having over 600 miles of stage. It is now called Rally GB. Rallying also took off in Spain and Portugal and by the 1960s had spread to the colonial territories in the mid-Atlantic. By the end of the 1960s events had not only begun in Madeira and the Canary Islands, but also on the far-flung Azores. Outside Europe. In countries where there was no shortage of demanding roads across remote terrain, other events sprang up. In South America, the biggest of these took the form of long-distance city-to-city races, each of around 5,000 to 6,000 miles, divided into daily legs. The first was the Gran Premio del Norte of 1940, run from Buenos Aires to Lima and back. It was won by Juan Manuel Fangio in a much modified Chevrolet Cooper copyright. This event was repeated in 1947, and in 1948 an even more ambitious one was held, the Gran Premio de la Arma copyright Rica del Sur from Buenos Aires to Caracas, Venezuela. Fangio had an accident in which his co-driver was killed. Then in 1950 came the fast and dangerous Carrera Panamericana, a 1,911-mile road race in stages across Mexico to celebrate the opening of the asphalt highway between the Guatemala and United States borders, which ran until 1954. All these events fell victim to the cost, financial, social and environmental, of putting them on in an increasingly complex and developed world, although smaller road races continued long after, and a few still do in countries like Bolivia. In Africa, 1950 saw the first French-run Mar copyright de Tirana copyright Le Cap, a 10,000-mile rally from the Mediterranean to South Africa. It was run on and off until 1961, when the new political situation hastened its demise. In 1953 East Africa saw the demanding Coronation Safari, which went on to become the Safari Rally and a World Championship round, to be followed in due course by the Rally du Maroc and the Rally Quartier. Australia's Red X Round Australia trial also dates from 1953, although this remained isolated from the rest of the rallying world. Canada hosted one of the world's longest and most grueling rallies in the 1960s, the Shell 4000 Rally. It was also the only one sanctioned by FIA in North America. 1. Intercontinental rallying The quest for longer and tougher events saw the re-establishment of the intercontinental rallies beginning with the London Sydney Marathon held in 1968. The rally trekked across Europe, the Middle East and the subcontinent before boarding a ship in Bombay to arrive in Fremantle 8 days later before the final push across Australia to Sydney. The huge success of this event saw the creation of the World Cup Rallies, linked to Association Football's FIFA World Cup. The first was the 1970 London to Mexico World Cup Rally, which saw competitors travel from London eastwards across to Bulgaria before turning westwards on a more southerly route before boarding a ship in Lisbon. Disembarking in Rio de Janeiro, the route travelled southward into Argentina before turning northwards along the western coast of South America before arriving in Mexico City. The 1974 London Sahara Munich World Cup Rally followed 4 years later. The rally travelled southwards into Africa, but a navigational error saw most of the rally become lost in Algerian desert. Eventually only 7 teams reached the southernmost point of the rally in Nigeria, with 5 teams making it back to West Germany having driven all legs and only the winning team completing the full distance. This, Coupled with the economic climate of the 1970s, the heat went out of intercontinental rallying after a second London-Euro-Sydney marathon in 1977. The concept though was revived in 1979 for the original Paris-Dakar Rally. The success of the Dakar would eventually see intercontinental rallying recognized as its own discipline. The rally raid equals modern times equals. The introduction of the special stage brought rallying effectively into the modern era. It placed a premium on fast driving, and enabled healthy programs of smaller events to spring up in Britain, France, Scandinavia, Belgium and elsewhere. Since then, the nature of the events themselves has evolved relatively slowly. The increasing costs, both of organization and of competing, as well as safety concerns, have, over the last 20 years, brought progressively shorter rallies, shorter stages and the elimination of nighttime running, scornfully referred to as office hours rallying by older hands. Some of the older international events have gone, replaced by others from a much wider spread of countries around the world, until today rallying is truly a worldwide sport. At the same time, fields have shrunk dramatically, as the amateur in his near-standard car is squeezed out. Grueling long-distance events continued to be run. In 1967, a group of American off-roaders created the Mexican 1000 Rally, a tough 1,000-mile race for cars and motorcycles which ran the length of the Baja California Peninsula, much of it initially over roadless desert, which quickly gained fame as the Baja 1000, today run by the SCORE organization. Baja events now take place in a number of other countries worldwide. 1968 brought the first of a series of British-organised intercontinental rallies, the Daily Express London-Sydney Marathon, which attracted over 100 crews including a number of works teams and top drivers. It was won by the Hillman Hunter of Andrew Cowan, Brian Coyle, Colin Malkin. Not to be outdone, the rival Daily Mirror sponsored in 1970 the London-Mexico World Cup Rally, linking the stadia of two successive Football World Cups, on a route that crossed Europe to Bulgaria and back before shipping out from Lisbon to Rio de Janeiro, after looping around South America, and a run through some of the most frightening sections of Peru's road race, the Caminos del Inca. They wrap it up being shipped to Panama and a final run up Central America. The Ford Escort of Hannu Mikkola and Gunnar Palm won. These were followed in 1974 by the London Sahara Munich World Cup Rally, and in 1977 by the Singapore Airlines London-Sydney Rally. In 1979, a young Frenchman, Thierry Sabine, founded an institution when he organized the first rally raid from Paris to Dakar, in Senegal, the event now called the Dakar Rally. From amateur beginnings it quickly became a massive commercial circus catering for cars, motorcycles and trucks, and spawned other similar events. Since 2008, it has been held in South America. Rally car evolution . The main change over that period has been in the cars, and in the professionalization and commercialization of the sport. Manufacturers had entered works cars in rallies, and in their forerunner and cousin events. From the very beginning, the 1894 Paris-Rouen was mainly a competition between them, while the 1,000-mile trial of 1900 had more trade than private entries. Although there had been exceptions like the outlandish Ford V8 specials created by the Romanians for the 1936 Monte Carlo Rally, rallies before World War II had tended to be for standard or near-standard production cars, a rule supported by manufacturers because it created a relatively even playing field. After the war, most competing cars were production saloons or sports cars, with only minor modifications to improve performance, handling, braking and suspension. This kept costs down and allowed many more people to afford the sport using ordinary family cars, so entry lists grew into the hundreds. As public interest grew, car companies started to introduce special models or variants for rallying, such as the British Motor Corporation's highly successful Mini Cooper, introduced in 1962, and its successor the Mini Cooper S, developed by the Cooper Car Company. Shortly after, Ford of Britain first hired Lotus to create a high-performance version of their Cortina family car, then in 1968 launched the Escort Twin Cam, one of the most successful rally cars of its era. Similarly, Abarth developed high-performance versions of Fiat's 124 Roadster and 131 Saloon. Other manufacturers were not content with modifying their bread-and-butter cars. Renault bankrolled the small-volume sports car maker Alpine to transform their little A110 Berlinette Coupe copyright into a world-beating rally car, and hired a skilled team of drivers too. Then in 1974 came the Lancia Stratos, the first car designed from scratch to win rallies, and the dominant asphalt rally car of its time. These makers overcame the rules of FISA by building the requisite number of these models for the road. In 1980, a German car maker, Audi, at that time not noted for their interest in rallying, introduced a rather large and heavy coupe copyright version of their family saloon, installed a turbocharged 2.1-litre 5-cylinder engine, and fitted it with four-wheel drive. Thus the Audi Quattro was born. International regulations had prohibited four-wheel drive. But FISA accepted that this was a genuine production car, and changed the rules. The Quattro quickly became the car to beat on snow, ice or gravel. And in 1983 took Hannu Mikkola to the World Rally Championship title. Other manufacturers had no production four-wheel drive car on which to base their response, so FISA was persuaded to change the rules, and open the championship to cars in Group B. This allowed cars to be much further removed from production models, and so was created a generation of rallying supercars, of which the most radical and impressive were the Peugeot 205 T16, Renault 5 Turbo and the Lancia Delta S4, with flimsy fiberglass bodies roughly the shape of the standard car tacked onto lightweight space frame chassis, four-wheel drive, and power outputs reportedly as high as 600 horsepower. Further Group B cars were developed by Ford, British Leyland and many others, but these were less successful. This particular era was not to last. On the 1986 Rally de Portugal, 4 spectators were killed. Then in May, on the Tour de Corse, Henri Toivonen went over the edge of a mountain road and was incinerated in the fireball that followed. FISA immediately changed the rules again. Rallying after 1987 would be in Group A cars, closer to the production model. One notably successful car during this period was the Lancia Delta Integral, dominating world rallying during 1987, 1988, 1989, 1990, 1991 and 1992, a Euro winning 6 consecutive World Rally Championships, a feat yet unbeaten. Drivers equals. Most of the works drivers of the 1950s were amateurs, paid little or nothing, reimbursed their expenses and given bonuses for winning. Then in 1960 came arguably the first rallying superstar, Sweden's Erik Karlsson, driving for Saab. In the 1960s, the competition's manager of BMC, Stuart Turner, hired a series of brave and gifted young Finns, skills honed on their country's highly competitive gravel or snow rallies, and the modern professional driver was born. As special stage rallying spread around the world, Scandinavian drivers were challenged by drivers from Italy, Germany, Britain, Spain and elsewhere. Today, a world champion may be of any nationality. The World Rally Championship now visits nearly all continents, taking its stylish sideways driving style and specialized cars to a vast global market, estimated by some to be second only to the Formula One juggernaut. This has produced unprecedented levels of visibility in recent years, but in many ways removed the motorsport from its grassroots past. For better or worse, rally has become a lucrative business. Rally types. There are 2 main forms: stage rallies and road rallies. Since the 1960s, stage rallies have been the professional branch of the sport. They are based on straightforward speed over stretches of road closed to other traffic. These may vary from asphalt mountain passes to rough forest tracks, from ice and snow to desert sand, each chosen to provide an enjoyable challenge for the crew and a test of the car's performance and reliability. The entertaining and unpredictable nature of the stages, and the fact that the vehicles are in some cases closely related to road cars, means that the bigger events draw massive spectator interest, especially in Europe, Asia and Oceania. Road rallies are the original form, held on highways opening to normal traffic, where the emphasis is not on outright speed but on accurate timekeeping and navigation and on vehicle reliability, often on difficult roads and over long distances. They are now primarily amateur events. There are several types of road rallies testing accuracy, navigation or problem-solving. Some common types are regularity rally or a time-speed distance rally, others are Monte Carlo styles rally, and various gimmick rally types. Many early rallies were called trials, and a few still are, although this term is now mainly applied to the specialist form of motorsport of climbing as far as you can up steep and slippery hills. And many meets or assemblies of car enthusiasts and their vehicles are still called rallies, even if they involve merely the task of getting there. Rallying is a very popular sport at the grassroots of motorsport, that is, motor clubs. Individuals interested in becoming involved in rallying are encouraged to join their local automotive clubs. Club rallies are usually run on public roads with an emphasis on navigation and teamwork. These skills are important fundamentals required for anyone who wishes to progress to higher level events. Short special stage practice events on public roads are in some countries organized by the local clubs, with the permission of the local police, the community normally using the road, and the road authority. The public road is closed during these by the organizers or the police. Rally courses. Rallying is also unique in its choice of where and when to race. Rallies take place on all surfaces and in all conditions, asphalt, gravel, or snow and ice, sometimes more than one in a single rally, depending on the course and event. Rallies are also run every month of the year, in every climate from bitter cold to monsoon or rain. As a result of the drivers not knowing exactly what lies ahead, the lower traction available on dirt roads, and the driving characteristics of small cars, the drivers are much less visibly smooth than circuit racers, regularly sending the car literally flying over bumps, and sliding the cars out of corners. A typical rally course consists of a sequence of relatively short, timed special stages, where the actual competition takes place, and untimed transport stages, where the rally cars must be driven under their own power to the next competitive stage within a generous time limit. Rally cars are thus unlike virtually any other top-line racing cars in that they retain the ability to run at normal driving speeds, and indeed are registered for street travel. Some events contain super special stages, where two competing cars set off on two parallel tracks, giving the illusion they are circuit racing head-to-head. Run over a day, a weekend, or more, the winner of the event has the lowest combined special and super special stage times. Given the short distances of super special stages compared to the regular special stages and consequent near-identical times for the front-running cars, it is very rare for these spectator-oriented stages to decide rally results, though it is a well-known axiom that a team cannot win the rally at the super special, but they can certainly lose it. Passer notes and reconnaissance. Passer notes are a unique and major tool in modern rallying. Television spectators will occasionally notice the voice of a co-driver in mid-race reading the passer notes over the car's internal intercom. These passer notes provide a detailed description of the course and allow the driver to predict conditions ahead and prepare for various course conditions such as turns and jumps. In many rallies, including those of the World Rally Championship, drivers are allowed to run on the stages of the course before competition and create their own passer notes. This process is called reconnaissance or recce. During reconnaissance, the co-driver writes down shorthand notes on how to best drive the stage. Usually the drivers call out the turns and road conditions for the co-drivers to write down. These passer notes are read aloud through an internal intercom system during the actual race, allowing the driver to anticipate the upcoming terrain and thus take the course as fast as possible. Other rallies provide organizer-created route notes, also referred to as stage notes, and disallow reconnaissance and use of other passer notes. These notes are usually created using a predetermined passer note format, from which a co-driver can optionally add comments or transpose into other passer note notations. Many North American rallies do not conduct reconnaissance but provide stage notes through the use of the Gemba inertia notes system, due to time and budget constraints. In the past, most rally courses were not allowed to be scanned prior to the race, and the co-drivers used only maps supplied by the organization. The exact route of the rally often remains secret until race day. Modern rallies have mostly converted to using organizer-supplied notes or allowing full reconnaissance, as opposed to racing the stages blindly. This change has been brought on in large part due to competitor demand. Historic rallying. In the wake of the ever more advanced rally cars of the 21st century is a trend towards historic rallying, in which older cars compete under older rules. This is a popular sport and even attracts some previous drivers back into the sport. Many who enter, however, have started their competition careers in historic rallying. Film. In February 2015, the National Film and Television School in England premiered one of their graduating films called Group B, directed by ex-rally driver Nick Rowland. The film, set during the last year of the Group B class of rally, tells the story of a young driver having to face a difficult comeback after a long and troubled absence. The young driver is played by Scottish actor Richard Madden, and his co-pilot played by Northern Irish actor Michael Smiley. The film features Group B class cars such as Ford RS200, Opel Manta and Tony Pond's MG Metro 6R4. The stunt driving in the film has been attributed to Rally America champion David Higgins. Rally driving techniques: handbrake turn, heel and toe, hill jumping, left foot braking, Scandinavian flick. See also: Andros Trophy, Australian Rally Championship, Canadian Rally Championship, Classic Rally, Intercontinental Rally Challenge, Rally Raid, Rallycross, Regularity Rally, Road Rally, SCCA Rallycross, United States National Championship, Targa Newfoundland, World Rally Championship, Zero Car. References. External links: FIA, sanctioning body for the WRC, World Rally Championship, WRC official website, NASA Rally Sport, U.S. sanctioning body, Rally America, U.S. sanctioning body, United States Rally Championship, Race Series, National Rallying Committee of Mexico, Mexican sanctioning body, Targa Newfoundland, Newfoundland sanctioning body.